The Northwest Law and Mental Health Conference brings together expert speakers with legal, clinical, and lived experience to discuss the impact of the law on people with mental illness and addiction. Our spring 2020 conference was postponed due to COVID-19, so presenters recorded their sessions, which are now embedded in the conference website along with their collateral information. Thanks to all our expert presenters, generous sponsors, exhibitors, volunteers, and the planning committee for the Northwest Law and Mental Health Conference. Stay well, and we hope to see you in 2021.
Greetings. I hope all of you are safe and well. I'm pleased to be with you for this presentation at the invitation of my good friend and colleague, Mellani Calvin. This session is about expediting federal benefits, Social Security, disability, and supplemental security income. Now, my presentation is going to be brief. Mellani has a wealth of information to provide that I'm sure you will find very valuable. I just want to add at this point that Mellani has her own business and her own perspective, but as I have great admiration for Mellani because she's always looking at the big picture about how we can do a better job. So with that, I just want to say that in sharing my thoughts, I need to give a little bit of background about my history and involvement with the issues about disability benefits. So by way of introduction that's relevant to this discussion, I was the director of Clackamas County Social Services for 22 years. I helped to create the program back in 1982, retired in 2006. During that time, we created an organization that had a united mission about services to elders, people with disabilities, low-income individuals, and families. We also had direct involvement with the state to provide long-term care, supports and services, and case management, and also eligibility for Medicaid, both the Oregon Health Plan and long-term services and supports. And along with that, we also had the General Assistance Program. And I want to provide a little bit more context about the political dynamics and the social conditions that went on in the past. Many people remember the depression, recession that we had in the early 2000s. Actually, compared to where we are these days, it's a modest look back at a downturn in the economy. But what happened, that decision makers decided that they had to cut a number of different programs. And among those, they reduced and then finally eliminated the funding for the General Assistance Program. Now, many of you know what the General Assistance Program was, and I'll tell you a little bit about what it is in a moment or two. But first of all, General Assistance has a long history going back to having its roots back in the Depression about providing assistance to people who were without support. General Assistance used to be a pretty broad program, but it narrowed in scope over time so that basically in its final rendition, it was basically a pre-SSI, SSDI program, helping people to get benefits. So how did that work? The state provided this program, and there was case management assistance to help people apply for benefits. There was also the access to the Oregon Health Plan. And in addition to that, there was a small stipend at that time of $315. Now, the program did have a long track record of helping people to gain benefits. But because the funding was general funds, the state in the time of an economic downturn decided that they needed to cut the funding for that program. So, and to be clear about this, this was a tragedy for individuals and families that were connected to this. The people on general assistance were mainly childless couples and individuals, mostly individuals. And sometimes they were disconnected from families and friends, but the General Assistance Program provided a bit of dignity and opportunity for people to have a better life. And so there was a lot of concern in the community about the defunding of the program. We had a special program under Social Security that we were able to continue some of the activities, but basically the program went down all around the state. I kept advocating for restoration of the funding. And then when I retired from Clackamas County in 2006, I had the great opportunity to become a legislative advocate for the Oregon Law Center. I went to work there because I wanted to advocate on behalf of low-income people, and thankfully that allowed me to do further work on advocating for general assistance. So this is how I came to work with Mellani and came to have an understanding and appreciation for her efforts and involvement. She was at that time working for Central City Concern, and she was working with the BEST program, and she was doing a terrific job in the absence of general assistance to help connect people to disability benefits. She later went out on her own and created her own business. And I say this with great respect because, again, Mellani has always been conscious of the bigger picture. She just feels that there was an opportunity for her to fill a role here, to fill a niche, and she's done a terrific job there. But when we first got engaged, we were working with a small steering committee, and we worked with a group of volunteers that kept promoting the idea of general assistance. We went on to have about 20 or so different organizations ranging from AARP to the Campaign for Oregon Seniors and People with Disabilities, many other organizations that wound up supporting our general assistance effort. And we had to go step by step. We first got funding for a program to take a look at the issues and how we could do a better job. And that funding for that study happened from the state. And we came to the conclusion that one of the best ways that we could deal with restarting at least an element of the program was to work the most vulnerable, the population that we still had contact with, that were on a caseload that was presumptively eligible for Medicaid. And these were also people, we had a subset of that, a group of people who were homeless. So we made an estimate based on how would it be if we worked with the most difficult population in the most trying circumstances. Ultimately, working with our group, including Mellani, we were able to convince the legislature that it made sense to fund a new approach to the program, and that happened with the passage of House Bill 4042 in the 2016 session. And now, while we don't have the time to fully discuss the general assistance program, the program was restructured to be a housing first model to the best of our ability. In other words, getting people in off the street and providing rent assistance and utilities as well as a small stipend. The program has really helped a number of people achieve disability benefits and to remain housed during this period of time, but there are gaps and concerns with the program as well as successes. Going forward, the challenge is to make sure that the Department of Human Services, where GA is housed, the Oregon Housing and Community Services Department, where the SOAR program is housed, and that's an acronym for SSI, SSDI, Outreach, Access, and Recovery, and the Oregon Health Authority, to work collaboratively with each other as well as with community partners. So I would like to see this cross-departmental initiative with the goal of making sure that we provide a cohesive and coordinated strategy to ensure that everyone with little or no income and severe disabling conditions gets help with successfully qualifying for benefits. So to begin where I started, this is the main thing to do, helping people to make their lives better. And we do this with a conscious focus, we can make a real difference for Oregonians. This has the added bonus of saving money, so decision makers should make this a clear priority. And now I'll turn it over to my good friend and colleague, Mellani Calvin. And you will see from her description of ASSIST is that there are many different ways of looking at how to solve this problem. And Mellani and her company form an important part of making lives better for low-income people who will have disabling conditions. She's done a terrific job with helping people on a one-to-one basis and a terrific job with advocating for the broader perspective. So thank you, Mellani.
Thank you, John. It's always an honor to work with you. And yeah, we have some history together on this project. I was really thankful that you told the story about when General Assistance got defunded back in 2004 and 2005. That moment in time was a key event that changed the trajectory of my career. I was working for a disability attorney at the time, and I literally had some of our most indigent clients coming into the law office, and I will never forget one gal fell to her knees and said that that mere $314 a month was what she spent on her medications, and that now that it was going to go away, that she was convinced that she was going to die without her medications. And at that point, I realized I've got to do more than what's going on here. And so I began working towards a much more proactive way to advocate for people in this odd, complex realm. So thank you very much. And I really appreciate being here with you. I want to thank you all very much for inviting me to this conference. These kinds of presentations are important to me because I've kind of made it my life's work in the last, almost 2 decades to get the message out about this very big missing piece in the social services realm for people with disabilities. So thank you very much for having me. My name is Mellani Calvin, and I am the founder and director of a small nonprofit called Assist. And I founded Assist for social and economic justice reasons for people with disabilities. And as you'll see through the presentation, I feel very strongly that there's a big missing piece. So I am a member of an organization called National Association of Disability Representatives. I'm what's called an official non-attorney representative. I took a big test at the Social Security Administration, and this is one form of administrative law that allows for lay representatives, and I can actually help people with their disability hearings. But more than that, I started Assist to try and expedite this very lengthy, complex process for people with disabilities. I also started Assist because it became very apparent to me that there is hardly any real help out there for people to actually get through the application, the very first stages of the disability process. There's just simply not enough help in this arena for severely disabled people. I see this work as upstream work to end homelessness or prevent homelessness. People lose everything when they when they can no longer support themselves through work. They tend to become very destitute and indigent. We work with a lot of homeless people here at Assist. They're definitely the cases that are the most difficult and complex, and most disability attorneys out there don't care to work with people in these earliest stages. I do a lot of presentations like this throughout the Northwest, and I've kind of been evangelical about the need for more help in this arena. Because we need to expand this work, I'll never stop getting on and off my soapbox, so please forgive. It's just where I come from, where I live, and I hope you don't mind. Talking about my portion of the presentation, the first portion will be about the actual process that people go through, and the next half will be kind of suggestions or discussion on what more we can do. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and launch into my PowerPoint. And I also want to thank John Mullin very much for joining me on this. He also has been a champion in this area for many years. We know that the poorest of the poor and the sickest of the sick need more extra help, more and extra help. So with that, I call this application, this federal disability application, the elusive front door. It is a very, very difficult, overwhelming system, and someone experiencing debilitating mental or medical conditions, it's extremely hard to get through all the hoops, and there are a lot of hoops. So this little castle in the picture kind of represents the realm of services for people with disabilities, but there is a very big missing piece, and that is helping people actually be deemed disabled so that they are eligible for these benefits. So, and once they get these benefits, what they have is secure income for rent and housing and other basic needs. And along with the disability benefits, Social Security disability, I call it SSDI, supplemental security income is SSI. Along with these benefits come a medical insurance component. So the Medicaid is part of the welfare social safety net system. That is what is paired up with categorical SSI. And Medicare, of course, is attached to Social Security disability because Social Security disability insurance comes from the FICA taxes that people pay into the Social Security retirement system. So if you become disabled before you retire, this is where you apply for Social Security disability. There are some very big systemic barriers in getting through this process, and you can imagine someone suffering from severe mental health symptoms would be easily discouraged. So why is this a big missing piece in the social safety net? People with disabilities are expected to apply and navigate this system on their own. As I mentioned, most attorneys don't focus on the application part, the first steps with the Social Security offices, but focus much more on the appeals process. And there's very few training opportunities in this area. And very few even social worker programs even touch on Social Security disability. Most people think it's a legal realm. I see it as a social service realm. Social Security office is not very proactive in this help. They are supposed to help with disability applications, but getting an appointment can take months nowadays. And then if you do have a telephone or an in-person appointment with the local Social Security office to get your disability application started, they only record your answers. They do not help you develop the case and work on and even give suggestions on what makes good evidence in putting this case together. There's only small pockets of state level help, very small pockets, such as the General Assistance Program in Oregon. They have very small amount of funding, and they only work with very chronically homeless people, when in fact there's a whole bunch more disabled people out there that really need this help as well. Of course, there's a lot of opposition to growing government right now, but since there are already a bunch of services for people with disabilities, I posit that there should be more help with this as well. So one of the biggest barriers, I think, to people, there's a big misunderstanding on what constitutes disability from the Social Security Administration. They have the most strict definition out there, and I'm just going to read this. I'm actually going to have to find my other slide here. It's the inability to engage in any substantial gainful activity by reason of any medically determinable physical or mental impairment, which can be expected to result in death, that's pretty serious, or which has lasted or can be expected to last for more than a continuous period of not less than 12 months. People don't realize that you have to prove that you've been so sick you can't do any work for a whole year. That's one of the biggest misunderstandings out there in this arena. So once someone gets through the actual application at the local Social Security office, by the way, this is called an administrative review process. This is one form of administrative law, and administrative law was designed to make things uniform throughout the states. So if someone is able to get through all the first steps at the local Social Security office to get their actual claim filed, then the field offices then send an electronic case to another state agency who actually does the medical or records review. Those agencies are called the Disability Determination Services offices, and here in the Northwest, or I should say Oregon and Washington, ours is in Salem, and there's another one up in Olympia, and I think Washington has another DDS, but they're the ones that adjudicate the medical records to see if someone meets this criteria. So the appeals process can feel like, if you get denied and you get into the appeals process, it can feel like a pinball machine, but a slow-moving pinball machine. So if you get denied, the Salem office in Oregon here sends the denial and your case back to the local field office, and it waits there for 60 days to see if someone's going to appeal that denial. If the denial is appealed timely, this first tier of review is called a reconsideration. And that reconsideration goes right back to the same Salem or Olympia office that it came from, only a different set of eyes are supposed to review it a second time. There is a really low reversal rate of those denials at this reconsideration stage. If the case is denied a second time, then if a timely appeal is filed, then the case will go into the administrative hearing queue. That's where an administrative law judge will actually hear the case. But that is another year or so wait, year and a half actually, by the time the hearing actually happens. So the first tier can take up to 6 months for a first decision. A first appeal at the reconsideration stage can take another 6 months, and then it can be another year plus for a 1-hour hearing with an administrative law judge. So we're looking at 2 years already in this appeals process. If a case is denied by a judge, then believe it or not, there's another administrative review tier, and that is called the Appeals Council. That's a body of judges that are back in Falls Church, Virginia, and they have an extremely low reversal rate of the judge's decisions. So once all those tiers of administrative review are exhausted, then an American with disabilities can literally file a lawsuit in federal court. It would be so-and-so v. SSA. The federal courts are jammed with these cases as well, and all in all, this can be a 4 or 5 year process. So I'm here to talk about exploring a more effective way. The model that the ASSIST program uses is what we call an early claim intervention model. We file all of our clients if they're enrolled. We get referrals from all over the metro area, although we're focusing much more on Washington County right now. So we get referrals and we screen them, and if we enroll them in the ASSIST program, then we file all of our clients' applications online, and that gives us a lot better control over the message right out of the gate. We are extremely thorough in these online applications. So this early claim intervention basically is a case management model that takes really proactive steps. And our motto is to get it right the first time and keep these cases out of this multi-year appeals process. So our first step is to gather all the evidence to prove this person is disabled. And I started out in this almost 20 years ago as a disability paralegal, helping the attorney that I was working for develop cases for his many hearings. And so what it dawned on me one day that everything I learned getting a case prepared for a judge actually should be applied at the very beginning of anyone's case, because the first people, the state level people who are not medically trained, by the way, are the very first adjudicators. So that is part of the key to our success, is developing and building this case right out of the gate before we even present it to the Social Security office. So I want to talk a little bit more about what constitutes evidence in these cases. So the majority of evidence that is used here are medical records, but medical records do not answer the questions that the Social Security office is charged with answering, because what the meat and potatoes of this process is with the person's diagnosis, and they have to have a current diagnosis, pretty current, mental health or physical, and that means that they need to be seeking medical treatment. And then those medical records provide the diagnosis. But what they don't provide is the functional impairment information that will describe how well they might be able to function in a full-time work setting. So what that means is, if the Social Security is using medical records only to try and figure out whether someone can work or not, and thus deem them disabled or not, they're literally guessing at how functional these people are. So part of what we do is we very proactively correspond directly with people's doctors, with family members, with other case managers, with housing people, and we develop this broad body of evidence. This case belongs to the claimant, and the claimant can send in whatever they want to that will help prove their functional impairments, not just their diagnosis or the medication that they're taking that the medical records might show, or the x-ray results. So it's a very nebulous, it's a very gray area that these state level people who are not medically trained are charged with making a decision on. So another thing that we're very proactive about is we take our clients, and mind you, we take these high barrier clients, these very complex clients, we take them to all their disability related appointments so that they're not missed. We often set up medical appointments. Sometimes we actually have to get them reassigned to Oregon Health Plan providers, and get them phones so that we can, do the Obama phones, as they're called, so that we can stay in touch with them. And we fly really tight with any other case managers or family members that are advocating for these folks. So basically, what our job is, in a nutshell, is we have to vividly describe the big why they can't work a full-time job. And even more so than work a full-time job, sustain that job for, without losing it over and over again, or losing a job. Oftentimes, a person's work record, their many attempts to stay working, are also good evidence in and of itself. So I am not very tech savvy, so my pie charts are about as simple as they get, but this is a little bit of data from our evidence-based model. I have that in red because everybody's talking about evidence-based models, and this proactive model is hits it out of the park on this. So on the right is Social Security's data. Over the years, the number of cases approved has gone down and down and down. It has gotten harder and harder for people to be deemed disabled by the Social Security Administration. So there's over 5.5 million claims nationwide filed, and I can't see my statistic here very well because my little window is in the way. I think it's 67%. Yeah, 67% of all the people that start a disability application with the Social Security office are unapproved for one reason or another. So I'm gonna jump over to assist. We are very small. We are 4.5 person team, and I have 2 what's called benefit specialists who do the initial casework, and then I do the hearing level tier work as well as run the program. And we have some pretty rock star statistics. I'm going to be bold and say that. 82% of the people that we enroll into our program end up successfully approved. And the 18% of unapproved applications on the assist side is for people that move out of the area or somehow do return to work in some sort of accommodated fashion, and they're making enough money that they're not eligible for disability anymore. And sometimes we actually lose clients, like every representative out there does. So their 18% fall off rate or unsuccessful rate is pretty amazing in this human service realm. So this next slide is just a quick breakout of those tiers that I was talking about. This is the same number of people, it's just at these different levels of approval. So off to the right here, approved at the initial review without any appeals by the Social Security Administration is 22% of people. Assist has 55% success rate at that first tier out of our 100%. So the reconsideration stage, as I'm going clockwise through this, there's only a 2% reversal rate, 2% or excuse me, reversing the initial denial, so approval at the reconsideration stage. The next tier is the hearing level, and only 9% of Americans, even though we have a 1 million person backlog nationwide for these hearings, only 9% of the people are approved at that hearing level. And then back over to the assist side here, we have a 14% reversal rate at the reconsideration level, and then my caseload is 18% of all of the cases that we get approved are approved at the hearing level. Pardon me. So I want to talk about that big chunk of denials of the Social Security's section over there. I'm going to back it up here. So this 67%, there's lots of reasons for those denials. Social Security's data says that 39% of the applications are denied for technical reasons. And technical reasons means that people might not even be eligible for filing a disability claim. They may have waited too long and are no longer insured for Social Security disability. They might not have enough work credits. They might not have worked enough in the last 10 years. There's kind of a rolling 10-year window that they keep track of whether someone has paid enough into the system or paid enough of their FICA taxes from their work to stay eligible for Social Security disability insurance. For SSI, people often have too many resources to their name. They can have less than in order to file an SSI claim, you have to have less than $2,000 to your name and less than $783 of earned or unearned income. So SSI is truly for very, very poor people. So the majority of incomplete technical reasons for a denial from the Social Security office is incomplete applications and unreturned forms. So then another big chunk of reasons that Social Security denies people are medical denials. So that's about 28% of people that are medically denied that don't appeal. So as I mentioned earlier, most people don't realize how severely and chronically disabled they have to be in order to meet Social Security's definition. And they have to have really up-to-date diagnoses and ongoing medical treatment. Otherwise, it's very easy for Social Security to deny the case, saying you're not sick enough because you're not seeking medical treatment. So really, nobody understands that functional lens with which Social Security is looking at the records. And the claims adjudicators also have really high quotas. They literally have to get more than 2 decisions a day off their desks. So these reviews, and I'm going to be bold and say this, are very superficial. Thus the multi-tier appeals process. SSI believes that there are hundreds of job titles out there that are sedentary, unskilled work that someone can do in the national economy. Sit down, do phone work, light packaging, manufacturing, putting sunglasses into a packing box, that kind of thing. So basically, Social Security's ability to, let's see, how do I put this? The bar is very high for proving that you're disabled for disabled people, and the bar is really low for Social Security to be able to deny people. So basically, they're looking at if you can walk, talk, shower, make a sack lunch, ride a bus, you can get to work on a regular basis. They're using activities of daily living as their litmus test for whether someone can work or not. Yet they never meet people, they never call them on the phone to discuss their deficits. So I mentioned a term of art there, substantial gainful activity. Substantial gainful activity in Social Security's rules means the equivalent of being able to make wages of $1,260 gross per month. So really what's happening is they are not, there's this duality in their rules. On one hand, they say, you are no longer able to support yourself with full-time work, but they won't even take an application if you're working part-time and making more than $1,260 gross per month. That's part-time wages in this economy. So I want to bounce back to a little bit of ASSIST's statistical information here. 77% of ASSIST clients have significant mental health diagnoses. And let's see, so 23% are just physical only. Some more ASSIST statistics. Over the years, I mentioned we have a 4-person team. We've enrolled 663 clients. We carry a caseload of anywhere between 80 and 100 cases. These statistics are as of the end of February 2020. We've had approvals of 432 cases. The average amount of money per month that our clients are receiving is $912. So this is not an anti-poverty program. I want to stress that people on disability are not living high on the hog. Over the years, our tiny little team has helped bring in a cumulative $431,700 per month with all the clients that have been approved already. And over the years, that 432 approved cases, we have brought in a cumulative $24.4 million of federal money into the local economy. And when we win these cases, we still do the happy dance with every one of our wins, because we've helped Oregon identify another disabled person, and these federal funds means that people become consumers again. And all of that money goes directly back into our local economy. So another quick statistic sheet here. This is national data. 12.5 million Americans, or 6.1% of the US population, are receiving disability. And SSI is far less than the number of people getting SSD. Remember, SSD is from your work record, and SSI is for the people who have never been able to work. Sometimes there is, people can get both SSD and SSI if they're really indigent still. So I wanted to highlight another stat on this sheet here. 42% of national population, 42% of these cases are for mental illness. And assist our statistics over the years, we've served 77% of our clients have mental illness. So how can we better fill this big missing piece with a comprehensive case management approach? There is tangible and intangible state interests in all of this. This is where I get evangelical, I'm sorry. So right now, everybody's talking about the social determinants of health. And at the top of those charts are employment and income, excuse me, I should say income and housing as foundational or pillars of social determinants of health. But I'm in lots and lots and lots of meetings all over the Northwest where they're talking about social determinants of health, but they're not talking about basic income that helps stabilize these people's lives. So the time has come in my mind for scaling up this work. I've been singing this song for a long time. The Oregon Health Authority and the CCOs, are all talking about trying to integrate these social determinants of health. And we really, I think it's prime time to look at this big missing piece for people with disabilities. So again, another simple Venn diagram. The system that we have right now is really inadequate. It's very fractured and siloed, and so in the middle, of course, there are all the people with severe disabilities that really need help getting through this system. There's a small, the General Assistance Program I mentioned earlier is a very small agency in the APD, Adults and People with Disabilities Office. They have a very small team that services the entire state and only focus on disabled homeless. Throughout the United States, there are agencies called the Centers for Independent Living, and only some of them decide to take up this portion of the work as well. We have one in here, one in Portland that is working on that, but there's only one person and she's got a huge caseload as well. Long-term disability insurance companies actually hire national firms to try and help people who've been deemed eligible for long-term disability to get their Social Security disability applications started, because once they're approved, then all of the back pay or the retroactive pay goes directly back to the long-term disability insurance company. There's just another small agency in Oregon called Oregon Housing and Community Services. They have one person that's designated as a SOAR lead. SOAR is a curriculum for also helping homeless disabled try to navigate this system as well. I started out as a SOAR trainer 15 years ago, and that is still a very underutilized program in the state of Oregon. Small nonprofits here and there, such as Assist, and the first team of non-attorney representatives that I started at Central City Concern in downtown Portland. They're going strong, but we get so many calls. We have such a long waiting list ourselves to see if you know, it's not enough. Let me put it that way. And then over the years, the training arm of the company that I started here, I've done lots of trainings all through the Northwest to try and promote this, and a lot of hospital social workers attended these trainings. And so throughout Oregon, I know that there's a lot of hospital social workers that are trying to help people with this application as well. But it's not enough, it's not systemic, and I posit that there's got to be a broader reach into this problem. So what does up to scale really look like? So I mentioned there's a state agency that helps people with disabilities. It's called APD, or Adults and People with Disabilities. And I don't see why they should not be the agency that is actually providing this casework help statewide, rather than piecemeal small little nonprofits or other agencies here and there. The state is leaving federal funds on the table by not helping identify who should be getting these benefits and making sure that they get through this long, drawn-out process. And then every Oregonian or Washingtonian that's deemed eligible for SSI, that welfare type program. I know welfare is not a PC way to phrase it now, but it's a safety net program. There's the Medicaid that's attached to categorical SSI, or the federal definition of disability for SSI, there's a match, there's a state match. So the more Oregonians that we identify that are eligible for SSI, the more Medicaid match dollars that the state of Oregon will find as well, or will see. So I said earlier that there are state interests in investing in this. So let's see. There's also, with the advent of the ACA throughout Oregon, I know that there's lots of what's called Medicaid assisters. They're all out there in the general population, in the agencies, to help people get enrolled in the Oregon Health Plan. So I posit that there should be SSI or SSD assisters as well. It's a very important form of case management, and there are other agencies that do case management as well for the state. I really want to see the outreach for disabled homeless. A high percentage of the homeless people have disabilities, whether they've identified themselves or not. So I would really love to see these existing programs expanded. At the very least, that would be a great place to start. So this slide is basically homeless numbers in Oregon. Recent Portland Monthly came out with an article, and 1 in 4 homeless Oregonians are households with children, and we're second highest ranked in unsheltered homeless people, and we're 45th out of 50 for mental illness rates with access to mental health treatment. We've got a lot of work to do, and I think that getting involved in helping people stabilize their lives with income is a really good first step or forward step. I know lots of people are working on this issue, but I don't hear people talking about how to get basic income for these folks. So I want to kind of end my presentation with a little bit more very quickly with some of the things that the ASSIST program is involved in. I said that we're doing a lot of work in Washington County now, trying to help them establish a benefits program. There is a new Built for Zero initiative. It's a national initiative that basically is trying to work on a true housing first model for chronically homeless, and the ASSIST program is involved in that initiative as well. It's pretty brand new, and I'm very optimistic about it. Housing first is very hard. It's very hard to do this for agencies, for individuals, for state level agencies as well, but I'm thankful that we are getting there. Another program that we're involved with that I'm very excited about is the City of Hillsborough Police and the Washington County Sheriff's Office has some crisis intervention or homeless outreach officers, And my team is flying really tight with these officers to help us identify some of the homeless folks that they meet on the street that really need our help, that need to be on disability so that they have another mechanism to get off the streets. So we literally ask them to find folks for us. They ask us to look into their medical conditions or help them get on Oregon Health Plan. And we fly very tight with them, and I'm super excited about that. It's kind of a dream come true, actually. So another thing that that are very preliminarily working on is Oregon State Hospital. What I'm envisioning, and I've made a small proposal so far, is to do a person-to-person introduction into at the hospitals before severely mentally ill people are released back into the community. And we all know that the Oregon State Hospital in particular, their caseload is now inundated with the aid and assist population. And so these folks, the Oregon State Hospital can actually help people start their disability applications in many instances, but the process is so lengthy that they can't finish them or make sure that they're finished by the time they're released from the hospital back into the community. And so I'm proposing that we be able to meet these people while they're in the hospital and then follow them in the community very closely until this SSI, SSD process is complete. So those are the exciting things that the Assisted program is involved in right now. And with that, I'm going to call it good. Other than my contact information, we are very much put out there. We very much put out there that we are a community resource on this in this realm. It's very hard to get through to the Social Security Administration. They're understaffed, overworked, absolutely. And so we are good for consultations, and we're really good for just general, what do I do with this kind of case? What do I do with the Social Security Administration? So I want to encourage you to contact us with your questions. Here's the website, programassist.org, and our phone number is 503-888-2690. So thanks again for letting me join this virtual conference, and yeah, I'm just honored to be able to share my program information with you all, and I wish you all well. Thank you very much.